Trouble double double, sweet double. Shoodle up,
you go through fear, you go through excitement, there's disappointment, there's jubilation, there's anger, there's frustration, there's laughter. You go through all of that very intensely in about 3 hours, and it's just great.
I've never really been interested in sport of any particular kind, and I honestly don't know what it was that attracted me to this particular sport.
And people say, you must have been crazy playing that stupid game, you know? I mean, if you'd have known that you were going to go through all this pain, even to the day that you die you'll be feeling these pains, you wouldn't have played it, would you? And I said, yeah, of course I would. It made me who I am today.
I'm broader than Broadway. Yes, I'm broad.
Like many people, I think Channel 4 introduced me properly to American football. Like a lot of people, I thought it's a load of fat blokes in body armour because they were too scared to get hurt. Then when it started on Channel 4 in 1982, I thought, well, I'll watch it, see what it's all about. And I thought, actually, there's more to this game. It's actually quite exciting. It's a cross between sort of war and chess. And I was hooked, really.
The Milton Keynes Bucks started in 1982, and they were founded by a chap called Radcliffe Phillips, who was an American, and just decided to, as he was living here now, to try and put a team together. I think he targeted rugby players. I think he went around a couple of the gyms and got some, the bodybuilders involved. My wife at the time worked for a firm in Milton Keynes, and a chap at her work played for the Milton Keynes Bucks. And because we were new here, it was an ideal way of meeting new friends and getting involved in something socially. There was perhaps 70 players on the books. So, and as soon as you join the team, then you've got 70 new friends. Of course, all their family and all the things that they do, and they go out. So, instant joining into this big social group, which is exactly what we were looking for, really. In 1983, the three top teams in the country were the London Ravens, which nobody could get anywhere near them, Birmingham Bulls, and the Milton Keynes Bucks.
The first match I went to was the Bucks versus Northampton Stormbringers. They had a crowd of about 4,000 there that day. There was something about the game that probably the violence, I don't know, but that sort of clicked with me somehow, and I got involved. I spoke to the chap that ran it, Mr. Radcliffe Phillips, and he asked me if I would help out with the supporters club.
First game in September '84, they played the Croydon Coyotes, won 46-0, and I really enjoyed it. I thought, yeah, this is good. Went to the following home game, which was the last game of the season, against the Leeds Cougars. Again, they won quite easily, and they were my team from then on. So the following season, I went to watch all the home games. And I think towards the end of the season, that's where I got to know Margaret and Ernie. They were running the supporters club, and Margaret was always badgering me to take it up. She said, go on, you can play. And I was pretty unhealthy then. I was about 16.5 stone. I smoked, did no exercise whatsoever, and I thought, no. But she kept nagging me, and I thought, well, shall I? And eventually I thought, I'll have a go. Kept in contact with Margaret and Ernie after the season had finished, and the Bucks folded, but a new team was starting up, and they were going to be running it. Found out when the first training session was and went down, and that was that. I was a player after that.
I was the new leader for Sherrington Youth Club. A couple of the lads said that they'd been to the bowl to watch American football, and could we get somebody in to talk about American football? One Monday evening, a young man walked in with his kit who happened to be somebody that I'd gone to school with, a gentleman called Theo Hall. For the next hour, he sort of talked to what it was, how it was played. And afterwards, he said to me, you know, Brian, we could really do with people that will support the team. Things like people on chain crew and just sideline staff, backroom boys, I think you would probably call them. And I went down, and that's where I met Ernie and Margaret, and they sort of adopted me.
There was local papers about years ago. Unfortunately, we don't get them now. And we see there was a team started up at the Bowl, the Milton Keynes Bucks. So I thought, oh, I'd love to go and have a look at that. And that's when I first came across Ernie and Margaret. They used to have a tent up there for everybody to go in and have a chat.
And then one day I was talking to Ernie, and they said, well, we've got a loudspeaker van coming to commentate on the game. You know, you always seem to have plenty to say for yourself. So I would be stuck upon the hill at the Bowl in this lovely big trailer and commentate on all the games. A bit like John Watson. I'd like to think I was as good as him, but I'm not sure I was.
The downfall of Milton Keynes Bucks, from my perspective and a lot of the players, was its success in many ways. As we were one of the top 3 teams in the country, and as we had a fantastic venue to play at, which was the Milton Keynes Bowl, we attracted quite a number of good sponsors. And that was one of his fortes. Radcliffe Phillip, the founder, was talking to people and getting sponsorship from them. So the money started pouring in to such a point where Radcliffe Phillips decided that he wanted to cash in on it. When we turned up to training, there was a handout of letters that Radcliffe had formed informing us that he'd formed this limited company called Buxton Promotions, and he was now the boss. And if there was any more negative, feedback, he would just dismiss us from the team. And that really was the sort of beginning of the end.
The lads turned around and said, no way, they're playing for a limited company. And so they walked away en masse and came to us. And I think two players stayed with Radcliffe Phillips. And what he did then, he took them to Coventry and joined in with Coventry, and it became the Coventry Milton Keynes Bucks. Now the supporters of the Coventry team were very annoyed, but luckily it only lasted for the one season. We called a meeting. We had all the old players there, quite a few supporters, and we decided that it was going to be a players' club. What we had to decide was a new name for the team, and it was all put to the vote, and the Pioneers won by 2 votes in the end. The problem was that the powers that be, the leagues, I mean there were so many of them, it's unbelievable, but they wouldn't let us in a league because they said we were a new team, which obviously was rubbish because it was the Bucks, basically. So we organised 7 friendly games. We travelled to Bristol, Cardiff, Manchester and to Barnsley. The game we won 128-0. The fantastic thing about that game was that at half time we were beating them 68-0. So we said, are you going to concede? They said, no, we want to play. So they came out and played the second half, and as I said, the final score was 128-0. In the bar after the game, the atmosphere was tremendous because they said to us, so you beat us, but we learnt a lot today. It showed the sportsmanship. It was fantastic.
Personally, I decided to go and start another team called the Bletchley Bees. The Pioneers had heard that some of the old players of the Bucks were playing for the Bletchley Bees now for fun, and they used to come down and watch us. And then we decided, look, this is crazy. Why don't we just join together and become? We'll lose the Bletchley Bees and become Milton Keynes Pioneers. So that's what we did. We joined together, became the Pioneers.
In 1988, our first head coach was a chap named Mark Walker. He was an American. He was based at Hayford, I believe. At the beginning of every match, he used to form the lads into a circle, and they'd all go down on one knee and have a short prayer. He was like that. He was very, very nice.
Yeah, that was awkward for those of us who weren't believers. But at the same time, it was something we were all doing together. It was a bonding thing, I think.
I always remember going to Kings Lynn, and we had this horrendous thunderstorm, and one of our running backs, he got tackled and then just swan dived along the floor gracefully through this, with water streaming up and mud streaming up. The guy that tackled him was injured, and they said, "For God's sake, turn him over, he's drowning."
Kurt Smeeby, he was a coach in 1990.
He coached a lot of teams in the UK and was one of the best coaches in the country in his mind. Others might differ in their opinions of him. He came in and he had a system that he used, and he tried to impose that on the Pioneers, and it didn't work, and it was never going to work. It was a wrong way for us to play.
Normally, when a team loses all their games in one season, they lose players. But luckily, we kept most of our lads.
Probably the most memorable season for me. We were quite a small squad. We were mostly local lads, and we just went out and played for each other every game, and it was a good time.
A good coach can make a team. A bad coach can ruin it.
The coach is the man. Like, I'd say Alex Ferguson type of the man. He's in charge, right? Because like he's got assistant coaches for different positions, but really the executive decision of what the team does next is down to the head coach.
First coach was Bob Luddington, who was a coach at the Bucks, and very knowledgeable man. Not exuberant in any way like some coaches can be. Says what he has to say fairly quietly. But his manner demands respect.
Success of a team was dependent on its coaching, and because we were really lucky as the Bucks and the Pioneers to get some good coaches, it's what really propelled us up the league and gave us the success that we had.
For someone who's not in the game, it looks like a bunch of guys just running around, crashing into each other. But it's very much, with the coaches on either sideline, it's very much a chess game. Because it's all to do with yardage, to the next down, how much time's on the clock, all those kind of things.
A lot of it was motivation and mindset to get you to a sort of a frenzied state. The Milton Keynes Bucks defence, they were called the Maroon Monster. What they used to say before going out to a play was seek out and destroy, and they meant it, every word.
I learnt an awful lot from them, so much so that I ended up coaching myself. We formed the MK Pathfinders, and in 1999 we went from a team which had drawn one game to 10-0 national champions. I'm glad my wife's in the other room so she can't hear this. That was probably the proudest moment of my life. I became a England coach and was then asked to join the GB team as a coach. They
played football, American football, in the 40s when it started at collegiate level, and they used to wear these leather helmets with no face guards at all. And years ago, American footballers had no teeth and broken noses to a man. So they really quickly knew that they had to develop some kind of protection for the face, and the early helmets came into play. But as soon as you have a hard shell helmet, then you've got an incredible weapon. And if without any of the other padding, if you just played with this helmet, you would break people's bones with it. So I've seen so many injuries. I've been injured myself great many times in all over the place. I remember playing with broken ribs, and I had a rib protector on, and I had to go to the doctor and get a cortisone injections the day before and take painkillers to go on the field and play. And I remember feeling them moving. I could feel them creaking while I was running. Yeah.
And I remember in the early days of playing football, I'd go to work the next day. For the next couple of days after that, I'd be aching, I'd be paining, my back's hurting, knees hurting, shoulders hurting, you know. But hey, that's what it's about. This is what I'm saying, the gladiatorial nature of the game, the helmets, the pads, you know, man against man, that kind of thing. The cheerleaders were usually the girlfriends, the wives, the sisters, the little nieces of the players. And you know what I want to say that some women are like. Give them anything sparkly that shakes, you know, short skirt. Now, I'm going to try and keep it PC here. I don't want to offend anybody, please.
They had chance, particularly for the defence, particularly for the offence, and you didn't get them mixed up. The players really did love them because we'd play in hail, snow, come what may, it doesn't matter, we're playing. And they'd be out there in their T-shirts, freezing blue with the cold, soaked to the skin, but they were out there cheering.
They were part of the team too. They were players as much as we were, I would say.
We're in Division 2, and that season we were 9-1 on the season. We won the playoffs, and we went into the fight against Bedford Bombardiers, beat Bedford, and then we were promoted from Division 2 to Division 1.
But I can still remember Steve Donegal getting the ball and breaking through that line, and everybody just going, go, 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 and go, no, don't touch anybody, don't touch anybody. And, you know, that moment when we picked that trophy up.
For Ernie and Margaret's benefit, for all the hard work and commitment they put in, winning that Division 2 bowl capped it off for them. They're a wonderful couple, and I think in the end they got their just reward.
Well, obviously, initially, I mean, most of the lads came from Milton Keynes, but we started attracting players coming up from London.
I started at the Olympians for 4 years, 4 seasons back to back, which I'm very proud of. Then sat on the bench again for another 2 years. And then Tom Craig from Milton Keynes Pioneers made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And I came along, and Tom, Craig and the other guys were there, and Ernie and Margaret were there. And it was very kind of homey, very kind of, I don't know if cozy is the right word to use, but very welcoming. Whereby the Olympians, it was very cut and thrust, even at practice.
We did have one lad used to come over from Ireland to play. And he'd come over every weekend, used to fly over, and we said to him, well, in that case, we won't charge you subs, like, you know. It's fair enough, isn't it?
Our fans, when we were the Pioneers, we used to play down at Manor Field, and we used to get quite a few local fans then when we had a home game, and they'd all have, you know, the air horns and all kinds of things. They'd all have the badges and the T-shirts. That made a big difference.
We travelled the length and breadth of the country. We met some fantastic people. We had some fantastic times, irrespective of the result. One thing I can honestly say is everybody were there, always gave 100%. Win, lose or draw, we always had a fun time. The coach trips were always fun, even on the way home if things hadn't gone so well. Everybody was really jolly.
Crazy times where we'd go away games, wherever, to Leeds or Manchester, whatever, and the times coming back, one all lost. We'd have an amazing time on the coaches coming back, singing rugby songs and all kinds of things. It's a tremendous atmosphere.
Margaret and I, we used to brew our own wine. So what we do, we used to raffle a bottle of wine on the coaches. So you can imagine, I mean, not on the way down, no way. But on the way back, we used to raffle the bottle of wine, and so you can imagine that the journey back was pretty hilarious, I can tell you.
Trouble double double, sweet double. Shoodle-wop, shoodle-wop.
The spirit of the team was something I'll never forget. Outside of the playing at the game time, in the changing rooms after, we used to play music so loud, and it used to be reggae music, and just something that everybody loved. We've had our own song that we used to play. It's a chap called Barrington Levi, who released a record called Broader Than Broadway, and we thought that suited us down to the ground, And after each game, that would come blasting out, or even before the games, where we used to try and wind ourselves up to such a state where we'd go out and take anybody on.
Some fun run me down. Shoodly waddly diddly woodly diddly whoa. Swing. I'm broader than Broadway. Yes, I'm broad.
If you talked about the Milton Keynes Pioneers, the first thing people would say was, "Oh, that's Ernie and Margaret."
There was always an ear if you had a problem. They'd always listen. It didn't matter about themselves. They'd listen to everybody else. Basically, they put their life on hold.
That family feeling, it really kind of flowed down through the team, primarily from Ernie and Margaret. They really made you feel wanted, and they made you feel supported.
They cared a lot about us, and that was quite obvious in the way they treated us and looked after us in many ways. Margaret attended all the training sessions, all the matches. She helped to strap people up before games. She would do anything that needed doing. And she mothered us, which we loved. You can't go wrong. Ernie, cantankerous at times, but that's part of his nature, and he was a guy who got things done, and we all had a lot of respect for him.
When it came to the annual general meeting, we'd have nominations for chairman and secretary and supporters and players reps and what have you, and it was always, and the nomination is Margaret, you're in, and nobody ever stood against her because everybody just trusted her implicitly.
On game days, you'd have your helmet and your shirt and your trousers would be on a hook in the changing room. So all you had to do was turn up and just get changed and get out there, And then after the game, they would make sure we'd have sweets and more refreshments, sandwiches, Margaret's famous bread pudding, and they'd really be like real mum and pops about it, It was like, they're just like everyone's mum and dad or, uncle and auntie. They were fantastic.
Margaret only kept the club going really for all those years. And it introduced a lot of people to each other who are still friends today, 25 years later, and close friends as well. So I'd like to say thank you to both of them for doing that for us.
1997, Margaret's health was deteriorating quite rapidly. So eventually we decided that we would retire at the end of the season. We'd already arranged to hand it over to these two chaps. One was our head coach, Tyrone Lindsay.
We felt that, he could take the team forward. And for a while, that's what he was doing. And then he introduced a gentleman called John Carney. And Margaret and Ernie never took to him. In '97, they struck a deal with Horizon Radio and got sponsorship. Now, Ernie had always said that he would never ever change the name of the team, and they became the Horizon Pioneers. Ernie and Margaret were very upset about that.
Over those 11 years, we never owed anybody a penny at the end of the season. But these two, within 3 months, they were bouncing cheques.
And we played the final at the Milton Keynes Hockey Stadium for the National Championship, and we were runners-up. Ernie, Margaret and myself never received any trophies, never received any medals for that. We were told, oh, they've all run out, the players have all got them. But despite the fact that we were the ones that were marking the pitches out and turned up for every training sessions.
We retired at the end of that season. Unfortunately, obviously we hadn't now.
But at the end of the game, I went and I got the microphone from the guy who's dealing with the PA, and we addressed the crowd, you know, and I brought Ernie and Margaret. So the three of us were standing there, and I was saying, you know, this team's all about Ernie and Margaret. They made it all happen, just to give them some recognition and support. And, you know, it was really like a touchy moment, because they had a little tear come to the eye about it, and Ernie still speaks to me about it today. And
in fact, the senior team only lasted another few months. I think they played a couple of games in France, and the players just drifted away. It had lost that family feeling.
The camaraderie. Learning to interact with people from all different social spheres, from all different backgrounds, all different ethnic groups. That, I guess, would be lessons learned.
We never gave up, even when we were, when we were absolutely rubbish. The 2 years that we didn't win a single game, we came back, we fought back. When times were hard, we got together and pulled as a team, as a family, to achieve what we could possibly achieve. And yeah, I think it's very much a life lesson for me.
Coming out of football, having a keen interest in personal development, that fits in like dovetails, hand in glove with my journey in life beyond football. So it's like I've carried a lot of the values and the culture of American football further on into my life.
Oh, it completely changed us, our characters, absolutely. The ethos of winning, and that mentality of being self-motivated and self-starting and not needing to be prodded and pushed to do things, and that winning was really, and success was really important. That changed a lot of us.
Over the ocean and over the sea, all of the girls them are vote for we. Here I come, here I